Hello, welcome to this video on Lily de Silva lesson 11, and we'll be looking through the grammar. There's quite a bit more that I'll be going through than the grammar that's shown here, for reasons that will become apparent in a moment. We're dealing here with the present participle, and the book says, I'm looking at page 41 in the printed book, present participles are formed by adding suffix nta or mana to the verbal base. By the verbal base, that of course is not the root, it's the present base. For example, if you look at the root gum, as we know, that makes gachati slightly irregularly. This is known as the present base or the present stem, so gacha. So what is being said here is that you make your present participle by adding gacha is the base, so by adding gachanta, or gachanta or gachamana, meaning going as adjectival. Yes, okay, true enough, but there's a lot more to it, as we'll see in a moment. So they function as adjectives and agree in gender, number, and case with the nouns they qualify. In other words, they behave just like any other adjective. They're declined like the ending nouns in the masculine and neuter. And it says that the feminine hasn't been introduced so far. That'll be explained later. That's just it's an E ending, so instead of gachanta, gachanto for the nominative, gachantam for the, gachanto for the masculine, nominative singular, gachantam for the neuter, nominative singular, it would be gachanti for the feminine singular. So examples are given here from the root pach, regular verb, pach, to cook. As I said, cognate with our English word bake, actually in the Russian pech, meaning a stove. So pachati, he cooks. And that can make a present participle in pachanta or pachamana. So if you see the man cooking, you see the man cooking is naram pachantam passasi. You see the man cooking. Or naram pachamanam passasi. And it gives various other examples. The next one in the book, near the top of page 42 now, gacha, present stem from gum, gachanta or gachamana, bunja, bunjanta or bunjamana. Note now from the root sta, in Sanskrit we have tishtati, it's a reduplicating verb. In Pali it is tittati. So in present participle is going to be tittanta or tittamana. And from vihar, to dwell, we have viharati. He dwells. So from that we have viharanta or viharamana. I'll now go through the examples in sentence formation, and then I'll introduce you to a bit more complex stuff that you will need to know because you're constantly coming across it in your actual reading. So I'll just give the examples as they're given in the Lily de Silva book, and then I'll give the expanded bit. So the man who is cooking rice laughs. We're looking at exercise number 3, section 3, singular. The man who is cooking rice laughs. So battam pachanto puriso hasanti. So pachanto, present participle, the man who is cooking, the cooking man, the man who is cooking. So battam pachanto puriso hasati. Equally correctly, battam pachamano puriso hasati. And next one, the doctor calls the man who is cooking rice. So the doctor calls vejo pakosati. The man, he calls the man purisam pakosati. He calls the man who is cooking. So pachantam purisam pakosati. The man who is cooking rice. The doctor calls the man who is cooking rice, therefore vejo, the doctor, bhuttam pachantam purisam, literally the rice cooking man, the man who is cooking rice, pakusati. And equally with the mana form, vejo bhattam pachamanam purisam pakusati. Number 3, the doctor speaks with the man who is cooking rice. So the doctor speaks with the man, vejo purisena saha bhasati. The doctor speaks, vejo bhasati. With the man, instrumental, and saha, so vejo purisena saha bhasati. The doctor speaks with the man who is cooking, vejo pachantena purisena saha bhasati. Now this present participle functions as an adjective, but equally it is a verbal adjective, and so it can have an object, as we have here. So the man who is cooking rice is buttam pachamano, buttam pachanto puriso. So the doctor speaks with the man who is cooking rice is vejo battam pachantena purisena sahabhasati, or vejo battam pachamanena purisena saha bhasati. And the same in the plural. The men who are cooking rice laugh. Battam pachan, so the men laugh, purisa hasanti. The men who are cooking laugh, pachanta purisa hasanti. The men who are cooking rice laugh. Battam pachanta purisa hasanti. Or battam pachamana purisa hasanti. The doctor calls the men who are cooking rice. The doctor calls vejo pakosati. The doctor calls the men vejo purise pakosati. The doctor calls the men who are cooking vejo pachante purise pakosati, or pachamane purise pakosati. And the doctor calls the men who are cooking rice vejo bhattam pachante purise pakosati. The doctor speaks with the men who are cooking rice. So the doctor speaks, vejo bhasati. The doctor speaks with the men. We have the instrumental plural here ending in ehi and with saha. So the doctor speaks with the men, vejo purisehi saha bhasati. The doctor speaks with the men who are cooking, vejo pachantehi purisehi saha bhasati. The doctor speaks with the men who are cooking rice. Vejo bhattam pachantehi purisehi saha bhasati. that concludes what Lily de Silva has to say on the present participle. And as I said, it's far from being the entire story. In Sanskrit, I've referred you in the resources sheet to section 85-86 of MacDonald, where he deals with the with changeable stems, he calls them, 85-86 on the MacDonald book. I'll just call it up in a moment. So I do advise you to study this section in MacDonald's grammar. You'll see here is his stems ending in at. That actually is the accusative antam. That's cognate with the Latin ending ans, you know, and ans and antem in the accusative, and which we get so many English words ending in ant, applicant, or ant or ent, you know, applicant, detergent, postulant, fire, retardant, all these, so many words ending in ant or ent or ent. Sentient, a sentient being, that's from sentire, to feel. It's the present participle, it's the adjectival form. Now, in Sanskrit, you'll see the detail in MacDonald section 85 here. Let's take the root char. And I've done a comparative table. Let me call that up for you now. So this sheet, sorry, I put an A here, I think it's now a B. Anyway, this sheet you'll see in the appropriate place in my Google Drive under Sanskrit and Pali Grammar, 85-86, so I think it's called B now, consonantal stems in antmant and vant. So what I've done here in simple table form, you'll see that using the root char, I have shown what it is in Sanskrit, that's in the red, and the equivalent in Pali. And you'll see that in the singular, let me go back now to my iPad, but try to have these documents in front of you, it will help. That's the MacDonald bit and my comparative table. So from the root char, we have, I'm going to put the Sanskrit down this side and the Pali down this side. So from the root char, exactly the same as Sanskrit and Pali, the nominative, we're dealing just here with the masculine, the feminine is simpler and different. You just have charan. Pali, as we know, can have charanto, as we've just seen, and charamana, as we've just seen. But these are, so to speak, neologisms. They are not permissible in Sanskrit and not permissible in Vedic. It was part of the process of simplification in Pali that these consonantal stems gave way, but not gave way, but existed in parallel with the ordinary a ending stems, which is the most common one. So you have in Pali, you have also, which Lily de Silva doesn't give, you have charam. That's the anusvara M. It behaves like an anusvara M. I'll put the dot under it. So charam, charanto, and charamana all mean exactly the same thing. They're all the present participle. Sanskrit permits only charan. If you said charanta or charamana in Sanskrit, they would be understood and say, hang on, you got that wrong. Consonantal declension, charan. In the accusative, in Sanskrit, charantam. Notice the N stays charantam, and in Pali, exactly the same. From now on, I won't be looking at the charamana, just know that exists in parallel. So charantam. By coincidence, the accusative form looks as if it could have been formed from a nominative charanto, charanta. It's not. It is still the consonantal stem, charan, charant, charantam, Pali charantam. Now look at the instrumental. For the consonantal stems, the characteristic instrumental ending is along a. So this becomes charata. Note that the N has dropped out. This N is present only in the nominative and accusative singular. Just talking about masculines now. And in the nominative plural, where it is charanta. In all other cases, that N drops out. So charata. So what does Pali do? Pali also has this form charata as an instrumental, exactly reflecting the Sanskrit, but equally it has its permissible form charantena, as if it were just an ordinary nominal ending in an a, charanto, charantam, charantena, and so on. In the dative, the fourth case, Sanskrit has charate, and this is the characteristic dative singular, masculine and neuter, dative singular ending for the consonantal stem, charate. In Pali, of course, the dative has become the same as the genitive, so I'll just put as genitive, so it's no different. I'll jump straight now to the genitive. In Sanskrit, charata. And as we know, very, very frequently, where you get a Sanskrit word ending in a, that becomes an o in Pali. As the Buddha is in Sanskrit, Buddha, in Sanskrit, in Pali, Buddho, Nara, Naro, a man, and so on. A doctor, in Sanskrit, Vaidya, in Pali, Vedjo. So the charata, the genitive form, in Pali becomes charato. Those of you who've been with me for the Dhammapada lessons will remember a while ago, long is the night of him who is wakeful, of the waking. It's digha rati, long the night, digha rati, jagarato. Pali could also have had jagarantassa, of the wakeful, but jagarato, this more classical consonantal stem, is used. So now we know the dative, same as the genitive, sorry. So if you give something to the walking man, would be charato narasa, not chara, it would be charate naraya in Sanskrit, charato narasa in Pali. 7, the characteristic ending for the locative singular in the consonantal stems is I, and therefore we have charati, which coincidentally looks like the third person singular. He is walking, charati. Coincidentally, it looks the same, so be on the alert for that. And in Pali, also charati. Now let's look at the ablative. In Sanskrit, in the consonantal declension, in the nominative sorry, in the masculine and neuter singular, the genitive and the ablative are the same. They're both charata. Same. We might have expected then the Pali for the ablative to be charato, but it's not. In fact, it's charata. It just is. You just have to live with it, I'm afraid. I'd have preferred to see the charato to reflect the Sanskrit, but it's charata, possibly by a double attraction, because in the ablative of the a stems, in Pali, in Sanskrit it becomes at, and in Pali just a, or amha, or asma, but ending in this long a. And that's possibly why, even when it's adopting, when Pali is using the more classical consonantal stem Sanskrit form, it's got this a by attraction, as it were, to reflect the ablative. So there it is. You'll see it all set out in detail on this tabular sheet that I've done. And I've mentioned that in this sheet I haven't put out the full consonantal declension, the full a declension, charanto, charantam, charantena, charantaya, and so on. I've just said that that can decline exactly like any other nominal in a short a. Now, in the plural, let's look now at the plural. Sanskrit and Pali. In the plural, Sanskrit has charanta. Note that's a short ah there. If it were an declension nominal, then charanta, charanto in the singular, then the plural would be charanta, with a long a and visarga, but it's not. It's charata, charanta. And the Pali has, to reflect that, charanto. That charanto looks like the alternative form singular, Pali charanto. That's the one that would be charam. Charam in Pali, also charanto. It looks like that charanto. Sorry, I should be calling up my. I'll start that bit again. This charanto in the nominative plural looks like this alternative form charanto in the singular, but they're from different stems. Charanto in Pali in the singular is where the present participle is based on the anta stem, so nominative singular charanto. If it were following the Sanskrit, this one is the charam. So this charanto is charanto because it's reflecting the Sanskrit charanta. Now, the accusative, the N drops out. Charata in Pali. And, sorry, charata in Sanskrit. In Pali,